Hi, folks. Welcome back to LPTV, and this is the breakdown. We had our broadcast 2 weeks ago, the DNC and the RNC. We took a few days off to get ourselves calibrated and ready to go to bring you some more LPTV. And tonight, I am very excited to introduce the new show. Again, folks, this is an experiment. It's a little rough around the edges, just like me, just like us, but we hope you enjoy it. We hope you get a lot out of it. A lot has happened since the Republican convention ended, and I mean a lot, a lot. And the campaign doesn't look like it looked like when we walked out of the conventions in either case. Came out of the DNC with Joe Biden in a very good position, came out of the RNC with Donald Trump having basically barely not set his ass on fire, but it wasn't a complete disaster, but it didn't move his numbers. The last few days, though, have been a disaster. We've had Donald Trump's comments about veterans and our troops come to the fore. They have been devastating for him politically. Today, we learned that Bob Woodward's new book contained 18 on the record taped interviews with Donald Trump. And from what we know, even about the few that have been released so far, this is a white hot disaster, politically speaking. He is in very, very deep, and this campaign is in big, big trouble. We're going to talk a lot about that tonight, but first we want to talk about Donald Trump's views of the military. I'm joined tonight by Fred Wellman, who's the Senior Veterans Advisor for the Lincoln Project. Fred, thank you so much for being with us tonight, brother.
Great to be here.
And of course, with Jennifer Horn. And Jennifer is another senior advisor and co-founder of the Lincoln Project and my good friend. And I am so glad she's with us tonight. And Jennifer also brings a little perspective to this because her son is a U.S. Marine. And I
Good
want
to
to
be with
talk
you
to
tonight,
both.
Rick. Thanks.
Thanks, Jennifer. Now, Fred is a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel who served multiple tours in Desert Storm and in Iraq. He is a former guy who's been around the Pentagon in his time in service, knows the whys and wherefores of what's going on in the U.S. military today, and can give us a very unique perspective. And I want to say this to both of you. The reason we're having this discussion tonight, leading off with our talk about the military and Trump's views towards the military, is I think nothing has illustrated his unfitness to be commander-in-chief more than the revelations of his views of our troops and the views of our veterans who have fallen in combat in this country. He called them losers. He called them babies. He called them dopes. He called them suckers. So I want to get into this tonight, and we're going to obviously talk about the Jeffrey Goldberg story, which has really reshaped this race a little bit. I want to go to you first, Fred, and get your perspective on where we're at with this this evening.
It's a train wreck. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. It goes to the very core of his support, right? It's about patriotic moms and dads. It's about people who love their country, and to have him come out and get caught saying clearly they're losers, I was just called the losers and sucker story. I gotta tell you, man, my phone and DMs and social media have just been blowing up. I was on an airplane on Thursday when this started, and I don't think my phone stopped ringing since then. You know, it's just insane. And it cuts the very core of who we are in the military. And Jennifer gets it as a military mom.
Sure.
You know, we never leave anyone behind. We worship the fallen, and he just spit on all that.
I mean, Jennifer, I mean, you have a son who has been a Marine, and this is something that is very immediate for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's hard. It's really like it's horrible. Like it's horrible. It's so hurtful. All I can think, my son served his time in the Marines and he's out now, and I am so grateful that he is safe and was able to give his service, and he didn't get sent to Iraq or Afghanistan. But all I can think about when I hear these comments from the president are all of those moms across the country who sent their sons and daughters to war, and for all of us, when our children go go off to serve. Um, People are changed by service in the military, good
Yeah,
and bad. It stays with them. It's something, it comes at a cost,
of
no matter
course.
where you serve or how you serve. And to hear the president suggests that my son, who at the age of 21 decided that he wanted to give something back to the country. And I will never forget the day that James came and told me that he had already signed up to join the Marines. And I said, James, you're
Surprise.
so close to finishing your degree. Why? Why this? Why now? He said, Mom, I just feel like I owe something. I feel like it's the right thing to do. So my son he's not an idiot. He's not a sucker. He is not a loser. The president of the United States is lucky that there are young men and women in this country like my son.
Sure.
And all I
And
can say is for all those military moms out there, do not let this president break your heart. There are better days ahead.
Thank you,
yeah,
Jennifer. I mean, Fred, this is breaking the fundamental compact of a president, isn't it? I mean, we've never,
you
I
nailed
mean,
it.
whether or not Barack
Nailed it.
Obama or George Bush
Right.
or Jimmy Carter or Bill
Yep.
Clinton or Ronald Reagan or George Bush 41, these guys all understood the fundamental character that a president had to be there for those troops. As commander in chief, the fundamental leadership executive action was to support them, was to be there for them. I mean, as somebody who's served his time in the military and has been seeing the proverbial elephant, this has got to be just utterly shocking.
It's a gut punch, and it's exactly that. It's Commander in Chief is the name, right? And
Right.
I lost my first men in combat in 1991. Two of my men were killed when their helicopter went down in Iraq. And I say it often. I've said it in other interviews. That's a burden you bear, right? When
Sure.
men or women you send to war die under your command or under your leadership or under an order you made, there's a burden that goes with, as Jennifer mentioned, that you carry that. I carried it for years. I had to get mental health care because of it. It's something you
I
never
believe it.
forget. And
Sure.
and what you're saying here, what you're seeing here is a commander in chief completely disconnected from that, completely disconnected from the idea that the decisions he makes will lead to men and women, our sons and daughters of America, dying. And they did. If you
Yeah.
remember, his very first big decision was over dinner with Steve Bannon, eating his wonderful chocolate
Hmm.
cake at Mar-a-Lago. He sent Navy SEALs into Yemen, and sure enough, Ryan Owens got killed. And
Right.
and
Right.
it appears that that was before this thing in France, right? He is completely
Hmm.
unaffected by it. The idea that men and women he commands as commander in chief are dying with decisions he makes, or that they did it for their country for a higher calling, is completely alien of Donald Trump. And I
Uh,
think that's why you see so much angry. That's why so many military people are angry about this. It goes against the very basic ethos that if I go into war and I get killed or captured or anything, I know I flew helicopters across enemy lines in Iraq. We flew on the other side of the Iraqi lines, and I knew that whatever happened, they would at least bring my bones home to my parents. And
right.
and Donald Trump does not give a shit about that.
And
Yeah,
it's one of those things that. Go ahead, Jennifer.
you know what, Rick, just really quick, just the hypocrisy of it. This president has built so much of his message and his campaign about I do more for the troops than anybody's ever
Right.
done for the troops. That
Money, just
sickening
money.
day when he stood on stage and wrapped his arms around an American flag.
Right.
It is so hypocritical to now to hear from multiple confirmed sources what he actually thinks. That the
Right.
denigration and the demeaning truth of how he feels about those who serve, those who are willing to give their lives in defense of ours. The hypocrisy is just overwhelming.
Yeah. I served as a civilian appointee in the first Bush administration in the DoD, and one of the most fascinating contacts I've had in the last few days is a guy I haven't talked to since the mid '90s, who reached out to me and said, "I remember we used to work together at on the on at DoD, and he was a former Marine officer, and I looked through his Twitter and his Facebook profile, and oh my God, the guy was as Trumpy as you could be." And he said, "The last couple of days have been a shock to me." He goes, "I realized I had bought into something."
Yeah.
He goes, "And I had to swallow it when he went after McCain. I thought, oh, it's just politics." He says, "And now I reached the point where he's pissing on the legacy of my former Marines in World War One.
Mhm.
He goes, and
Right.
he goes,
Mhm.
I have no family connection, but I have one family connection. That's the Marine Corps family. And he said, I can't believe what I bought into for this fucking long. He's like, I'm shocked
Right.
that I did this. And he was almost asking me for like a direction on it. I said, look, you have to do one thing right now, and that is to tell your friends, go out there and vote this fucker out. Get rid of him. It's
Right.
done. It's over. And
I've
and
heard that so much. Heard
I'm
that so
sure,
much.
Fred,
Yeah.
you have had even hundreds of contacts like this. And I've heard from some general officers, and I've heard from some staff officers, and I've heard from some guys out of the woodwork who are just like, it's done for me now. He can't get
Right.
this one
Yeah.
back. But we
Yep.
knew where he was on McCain. We understood it. We saw it very clearly. I mean, and the lines about McCain being a loser, and the lines about George H.W. Bush being a loser, and as a guy who worked for George H.W. Bush and who loved him to death, that idea that somebody like Donald Trump would call a man who was shot down by the Japanese under withering anti-aircraft fire on his 58th
Right.
mission when he was a fucking teenager in World War II was a loser. It's just, it's beyond. It's beyond. And I think
Right.
that this has broken something kind of fundamental in Trump's base that I don't think we've even seen the end of it yet.
I agree. It just keeps rolling,
Don't
and
forget, Rick.
he keeps. Sorry.
No, no,
Go
it's
ahead, Jennifer.
go right ahead, Fred. I just
He
say,
keeps
don't
stepping
forget,
on it.
Rick.
That's the thing. It keeps rolling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, don't forget how many times different members. This is the beauty of live streaming, right? But just don't forget how many times different members of the Trump family have tried to suggest over the last 3 years, 3.5 years, the sacrifice that they've made to
Oh,
serve our
oh
nation in
yeah.
the White House,
Oh,
and
Oh
how
yeah.
hard it
worst.
is that
Oh,
exactly.
yes.
And so, this president does not know what to serve and sacrifice means. It is a concept that is beyond his feeble comprehension.
Yeah,
Well, I
no,
mean,
it's
obviously
100%.
we all
And it's just
go ahead.
broken. Rick, you said something earlier about the four anonymous sources. We don't need four anonymous. I mean, literally, people come to me all the time and say,
Right.
yeah, man, but it's all anonymous sources. No, there's one source that's been on the record for decades. I mean, my God, in his prenuptial agreement with Marla Maples, okay, after Tiffany was born, he literally
Yep.
said, you know where I'm going, Rick? Rick, it literally says that if she joins the military, she's cut off.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
It's
this is
crazy.
not new. He's
Right.
always been like this is what, and if you look at the way he said that I like people that weren't captured bit, it's a bit to
Hmm.
him. You know what I'm saying? It's like it wasn't like
Yeah.
he said that before, okay? And
Right.
and and the way he said something, he called somebody suckers today. Okay, that's a
Hmm.
term he uses a lot. So look,
Yeah.
Yep.
we know that there's one source on the record for decades who feels this way, and now he got caught. And
Yep.
people are the curtain's been torn, and the man behind the curtain's been shown. And I do think I'm a skeptic, obviously, but I gotta tell you, I do feel the same way. This is different. People are pissed, and the punch on this whole thing is, and you're a Marine mom, Jennifer, you get it. Bella Wood, okay.
Yeah.
The
It's
term devil dogs, the term devil dogs came from the battle that
right.
he didn't want to go to the
Yes.
cemetery because he's
Hufalunda.
going to get his freaking hair wet. So the
Yeah.
president
Exactly.
couldn't honor the men. This is like from the day you become a Marine, you're taught about Bella Wood and you're taught about
Yep.
becoming devil dogs, right? And he literally is like, yeah, I mean that's great, but my hair will get wet. It's
Yep.
the Marines are the most loyal people on earth. I'm the
They
son of
really
a
are.
Marine. My dad was a World War II Marine. If my dad was alive, oh my
Can
God, I was
yeah.
taught about devil
Can you
dogs
even?
as I, unbelievable. I mean, you could have pissed on the Marines in any
In a
larger
worse
way
way, right?
than calling the guys, yeah, calling the 1,800 guys in that cemetery a bunch of losers. I mean, honestly, you couldn't have. If we were writing a script for this, Rick, like a TV show,
Yeah.
I don't think
Oh
I could have
God.
come up with a better
They'd never
storyline.
buy it. They never buy it. They'd be
Yeah.
like, "Oh,
Right.
it's too
Don't you
much.
That's
Too
too
much."
much. That's
don't you feel like this is, I as I'm listening to you talk about, I'm thinking, all the things that he has said and done, to your point, Fred, back to, well, decades and decades ago. And
decades.
none of it sticks. And you just roll. And ever since he's become, taken the White House, it's not that every week there's something new that's more outrageous. It's every day and then every hour. And you start to think, what sticks? What is going to move voters to, and I really do sort of feel like maybe this is different, because it goes to, it's so far beyond whether or not you're a Trump supporter or whether or not you listen to
Right.
CNN versus Fox News. It's so
Right.
deep, it's so powerful. And I really look at this and think it's going to, especially for, us at the Lincoln Project, we're looking at that 3 to 4% of Republicans, and can we move them? Boy, I think it'd be a hard sell to convince that any Republican
No,
that this is not a big deal.
I agree.
I wrote about this in the paperback of my first book about LaDavid Johnson, who was killed
Hmm.
in Niger, and about the call Trump made to his widow, and he didn't remember his name. He didn't know who he was. He didn't have any details of the guy's death, and he says to this poor woman, he knew what he signed up for. Well, you know what? He fucking did know what he signed up for. He died in combat serving this country, and he deserved to have a president who gave a shit, who at least had the
Hmm.
fucking decency to read the briefing, to read the index card shoved in front of him by an aide when he's calling the grieving widow of an American combat veteran who has been killed in action. And it iterates across everything he's ever done. And I think the
Yeah.
proof case here of how much he loathes these people came to me in one other line that he
Right,
said this week. And it was, what's in it for them? There's no money. They don't make any money doing it. What's in it for them?
right,
And I was like, have you never met a single person who served this country? Have you never met a single person who's enlisted to serve this country? He obviously has no grasp of it and has contempt for it. And he won last time. He beat Hillary by 20 points among military veterans last time. I do not think it's going to be that way this time. Do you, Fred?
right.
No way. No, no way. And that poll came out last week, Military Times poll, which they take every year. They take it for 4 years. Some people question the methodology because it's
Right.
only subscribers to the Military Times and whatever. But if you
Sure,
look at the
sure.
trend, it went from high Trump to Biden, and I think that's the sign. It's the way people ask me all the time, like, it doesn't make sense. I mean, he's giving them pay raises and all, but the military families know the truth because they live it, right? They
Right.
know that they're living in moldy housing. They know the new middle school and
Yep.
daycare
Right,
center on their post are not being built because Trump stole the money
The
with
money for the
Esper's help
wall.
to build a effing wall, right? So
Yeah.
you can't fool
yep,
the people who are suffering. They know that they're being kicked out of military healthcare facilities that only uniformed personnel can use them. So now they're getting their healthcare on the economy, even though they live
Right.
next to the hospital at Fort Campbell. They know the truth about Donald Trump because they're living it. So you can't
Right.
fool them into thinking everything is great. They
right,
know that they got a measly little pay raise. It's not enough. And
right,
so
No.
that's what I keep hearing from people, right? It's like, yeah, you can bullshit everybody else. And I think what's been interesting for me since I joined the Lincoln Project with a month ago, a month and a half ago, is we talk about these things, and it's amazing to me how many Republican voters they just don't even know. Like moldy housing, I didn't know about
right,
that. I didn't know that the
Right.
pay raise was like not one new damn plane's been built. That's all lies. And
No, it's all
so
bullshit.
it's
Yeah.
been interesting to me to see people get, to see people go, I had no idea. So I do believe it's a big change. And then now you got this where he comes out and spits on their actual service. No, I think it's a giant thing and good. And by the way, let's not forget, he keeps stepping on his crank every day. It's like every time he gets asked about it, it makes it worse. It's
Right.
like,
Right.
we talked about yesterday, right? I'm like, just give him a rake. The guy cannot resist stepping on rakes. It's just,
It's true.
it's just,
It's
I've
so
never seen anything
true.
like it.
But it's funny that this whole story, the emergence of this whole story, and obviously there are some senior military officers who were with him, who you and I both know who it is, and it's fine, whatever. He's not going to come out publicly. He should, but he won't probably. But the story resonates for me because it was Donald Trump being unwilling to go to an American military cemetery because his hair would get wet. And there's a picture
right,
of Merkel and Trudeau and May and
right,
all these other and Macron standing there in the rain with umbrellas, getting soaked. Because you know what? All those countries, they recognized this was a moment that was important to honor those sacrifices. And Donald Trump being a little bitch and not being able to get his hair wet. I think we have some animation of that, of Donald Trump not wanting to get his hair wet because he's such a delicate flower. He fronts this big masculine affect, but it's all bullshit. It's all he's as soft as He's the softest guy you've ever met in your life. He's never taken a punch. He's never laid a punch. He is a soft guy. So let's go ahead and roll that the Trump animation if we could.
Whores in this house. There's some whores in this house. There's some whores in this house.
It's a wet ass Donnie.
Oh, that's
Yes, we managed to
good.
get WAP into
Glad I
the
didn't eat dinner
LPTV
first.
show, and I'm so in
That
trouble
that
now.
that
I'm sure.
that was it. That was
It's
unpleasant.
disturbing.
Yeah.
That was disturbing in a lot of ways. But thanks for
It
that.
does. Yeah, anytime. So, Fred, I mean, you and I both know guys like Kelly and Mattis, and I'm
Yes.
sure we both separately and jointly and severally all begged them, please fucking say something. Please come forward. You got to do something. Is it just that long-standing tradition of not wanting to directly involve former general officers in political questions, or is there something more holding these guys back, in your opinion?
I'm not being delicate. It's all bullshit, right? Okay, so here's my frustration with Kelly Mattis, right? I mean, I'm not
Yep.
going to be shy. Look, they gave up the cloak of four-starness, the
Yep.
military professionalism. You know, we
Yep.
shouldn't be involved in politics. The minute they took a political job, I mean, Jesus, Kelly was the chief of staff of the White House. That's a political operative position.
Entirely.
And now to say entirely political, and you know, DHS before that, Mattis was DOD. He was a political point. He's not General Mattis, guys. He's Mr. Mattis, Secretary of Defense.
Yep.
So for those
Yep.
two gentlemen to now say, oh, you know, four stars shouldn't be involved in politics is such horseshit. There's no, you know, General Dunford, God bless him. General Dempsey, God bless him. They served their country as general officers. Now they've gone to retirement. Fine.
Yep.
But Madison, to have Madison Kelly come out and say, oh, sorry, dude, now that I ran this political operation, I mean, good God, you talk about LaDavid Johnson. Do you remember that Kelly's the guy that got up the podium and
Correct.
accused Frederica Wilson of being a liar? And
right.
He was wrong. And he was wrong.
He was
and
completely
he never
full of shit.
Completely
I know.
wrong. Because his crappy memory was wrong. And so now to say, oh, sorry, I shouldn't talk about politics, I'm a four-star. Because here's what's going to happen. I want us to record this. What's going to happen is the day after the election, the day after Trump loses, Kelly and Madison come back, Madison especially, is going to come out of the woodwork, and he's going to be, oh, I'm an elder statesman. Here's my latest book. Let's all have peace and get along. And people are going to lap it up. He'll be on CNN and MSNBC and everybody else, and he'll give his ridiculous Mattisisms about, you know, being the warrior monk, and it's all bullshit. You know, the country's in trouble. He and his colleague, who were political appointees, have the power to say something. They come out every now and then, do a little tickle, write an op-ed, and then disappear back behind the four-star cloak. So I've lost all patience for that.
I'm a little tired of it.
These are both Marines.
Right. And I've heard Mattis very clearly
Hey,
speak
watch
about
it
Trump.
with what you have to say about Marines. Watch it.
No,
there,
my
Fred.
point is,
watch
you're
it,
saying
dude.
a point though.
My
point is they're
live up to
Marines,
the
and he spit on their legacy. And if they can't stand, I mean, look, Semper Fidelis. I grew up on this, Jennifer. My dad, he was in World War II for like a year, and in the 90s, he was still calling it the freaking deck and going to the head. I mean, you never lived it down. Marines, like, I don't understand Marine Corps thinking, you know, Dad, Jesus, you've been out 50 years. But, you know, that's the thing. These are Marine generals. These are Marines, 40 plus years. He spit on Bella Wood. He's called people who died losers and suckers. And if that's not enough for you to step up and defend the Corps, what kind of Marines are they?
Right.
Well,
I agree with that, Fred.
I don't want to take it. I don't want to go quite that far with it. Like when you say, what kind of Marines are they? I want to believe that these generals will come forward, that they will do the right thing. Because I do believe, regardless of, I hear what you're both saying. I do believe that they have something in them that is real, and that is Marine, and that is service. And I still have hope. I still have hope that they will come forward and do the right thing and put their voice where we need it most right now.
Oh, me too.
Right.
And again, I was raised by a Marine, you know?
Yeah.
I get it.
There's no upside for them in this environment for sitting back. There's no upside for them in saying, I'm gonna hover in the distance and I can nudge and as you're right, Fred. They tease little bits here and there and they let people know that they're upset, but it's bullshit. You've got to either be on there pulling the trigger on this thing, or it's bullshit. So
When is enough enough? I
One of
mean,
the
why was Lafayette Square not wasn't? How come Lafayette Square wasn't enough?
Right.
You know, I mean,
right, how,
Right.
I
at
mean,
what point do we realize?
and Millie in Lafayette Square, that was like a moment where he shows up in his BDUs. I'm just like, fuck you, dude. I mean, this is
Right.
that you're playing the role that Trump wants you to play.
But he apologized,
True.
and I've actually backed off General Milley because I'm a colonel, I was a freaking lieutenant colonel, so who am I, right? But um,
Right.
he did come out a week later and say I was wrong to be there. I should not have
Right.
placed myself in that position. He literally just basically said I screwed up. I dishonored the uniform by being there, and I really respect that. And I
Well,
know,
that's that.
look, I know
True.
General McConnell,
True.
the Army Chief of Staff. The Army Chief of Staff and I were. He was a young major, and I was a young captain in Hawaii. Garrett, that's how long ago I've known him. He's 4-star now. They're good men, and so are Madison Kelly, I think. And I know they've got an abominable situation, right? We do. I mean, I cannot imagine
Sure.
trying to be the Chief of Staff of the Army or the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs under this Commander in Chief and maintain good order and discipline of your armed forces. But my God, for Madison Kelly, you guys saw where Trump basically said the soldiers like me, but the generals don't like me. Uh, he
Right.
literally is trying to divide the rank and file of the military
Right.
against their leadership. Okay, General Mattis, General Kelly, when's enough enough? When we have soldiers disobeying orders because they don't think their generals are politically correct enough? I mean, my
Right.
God. I mean, I've never seen
When
anything like
one
this in
set.
my life and or
Right.
history.
Right. When some
It,
captain
it,
says,
it
"Well,
places lives
you're
in
not
danger.
Trumpy enough." Sure.
Right,
Yep.
Sure.
right, right.
Well, we
It's
did
just
run a
the actual
couple of
commander in
ads this
chief
week.
undermining good order and discipline. So,
It's
sorry.
shocking. We ran a couple of ads this week on this. We'd like to roll one of them that we pushed out earlier this week. We can go ahead and do that.
Losers. Suckers. Dopes. Babies. That's how Donald Trump describes our men and women in uniform. Even Fox News confirms he said it. An American president would know our troops are defined by words like courage, honor, integrity, strength, patriotism, valor, and for so many, sacrifice. He's a draft dodger in chief who despises the men and women he supposedly leads. He insults their deaths and injuries with his contempt. He looks down on them for serving this nation, mocking them because there's no money in it. Millions of Americans have served and sacrificed. Millions more have sent a family member off to war. Only Donald Trump mocks their deaths, because Donald Trump is simply un-American.
The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I hope that wasn't too subtle for you guys. We're, this is an issue that is going to keep being talked about in this campaign. We're going to keep prosecuting this aspect of Donald Trump's very low character. And you can rely on the Lincoln Project and our folks to continue to press this very, very hard in the coming weeks. Now, folks, we're going to come up to a new segment of the show we call Message Discipline. So, message discipline is going to be about the key drivers we think are moving the campaign every day. The things that we think are the big relevant stories. Sometimes they're going to be the big headlines you hear about. Sometimes they're going to be more subtle things we think are happening under the surface that are important. And my favorite story so far this week is, while the veteran story is a shocker, my favorite story is that the Trump campaign is having cash flow problems. They've been outraised by Biden consistently in the last couple of months. And now they're canceling surveys. They're going dark on media. This is a campaign that is in trouble. They spent almost $1 billion, $850 million. That's real money. That's a lot of Ferraris and boats for Brad Parscale and the skim going God knows where.
Yes.
But this is a campaign now that is in trouble. And you've got the campaign now. Parscale's largely out. It's being run by Bill Stepien and Jason Miller and Jared Kushner. And I would just like to dance around a little bit in the wreckage of Donald Trump's financial problems in the campaign because it's so on brand for Trump to get almost done with a project and then realize he's burned through all the money. I mean, it's like the dumbest possible version of Goodfellas, only in politics. I mean, Jennifer, what do you think about this? I mean, it
I
strikes me as something
I
that's
just
amazing.
I just think this story is delightful. I just enjoy it. I enjoy it so much. It's like he built his skyscraper and ran out of money with 3 stories left to go, And I just the elevator can't go all the way to the top. It's never going to make it up there. I just think I so enjoy this story, and I don't know if that makes me a bad person or not. But I
No,
also
no, not
think,
bad.
yeah, right. It's so true. Isn't it interesting to $850 million, nearly $1 billion. Where did it go? Rick, we were having this conversation on one of our calls yesterday
Yep,
with a bunch of us,
we
the
were.
back of the envelope math, trying to figure out
Hmm.
where the heck did all that money go? And you start thinking, Junior gets paid, Junior's girlfriend gets paid, Brad's got a new boat. You just kind of go down through the list. The daughter-in-law gets paid. The How much of the money, and this is the part that I think is both interesting and sad. How much, they talk about all these donors, these small dollar donors, these
Yeah,
elderly people on fixed incomes, families with kids that need to
yeah,
be
yeah.
educated, small business owners who are shipping their bucks to Trump to try to get him reelected because they think he's in it for them. And their money is going into Junior's pocket.
I
Unbelievable.
mean, Fred, isn't this the same kind of like bad faith with everything? It's just bad faith across the board,
Well,
right?
that's
I
it.
mean,
That's it. It's all con, right? Let's be honest. I mean, like the
Right.
it's
thing we say
con.
he's considering giving 100 million of his own money to it. Look, he knows he's going to lose.
That's
Do you
a
really think
lie.
that Donald
That
Trump,
is a lie.
right? Donald Trump's not going to spend his
Right.
own money. Do you really think he's going to spend his own money? No. He's trying to. This is
Guys,
a
he doesn't
money
have
making
a
venture. He
hundred
literally
million
said
dollars
he's going to make
liquid.
money.
Exactly.
Yeah, he doesn't have it, and
Yeah.
he knows he's going to lose. This was a money making venture from the start. He didn't think he was going to win.
Yeah.
He thought he was going to make some bank. He literally bragged about making money on a presidential, and
Yeah.
so
I mean,
it just pissed it away, and
Jennifer,
that's
you
it.
know that. Yeah, Jennifer, you know this. When you're in campaign mode and you're doing fundraising from small dollar donors, you prospect and
Yeah.
you find out who they are at first, and then you try to start raising money from them. They kept prospecting until about a week ago because they want to
Right.
have a giant email list to sell when this is over, right? That's got
Right,
to be the real
right.
explanation.
That certainly has to be part of it, right? Because what's Donald Trump do if when he loses? Like, is it going to be, oh, poor Donald Trump, he has nowhere to go? He's got Trump TV already in the hopper. He's got
Oh yeah.
Right.
his next big operation, his next big scam. Is already in development. Fundraising for Donald Trump, to your point, Rick, is about 2 things. It's about money in my pocket, and then people who will send more money in my pocket when this is all over. One way or
Right.
another, he's going to be looking for money
Right.
from these people for the rest of his natural days.
I mean, and these guys around him, Parscale and Miller and
Right.
Stepien, they're all the worst possible bunch of skells you've ever seen. I think we've got some other video on this with to highlight the point of the great campaign robbery.
Where's the soup cans? There's no soup cans.
No, no,
I've heard how
Ivanka had a
dangerous.
soup can.
They're more dangerous
Ivanka
than
had a
bricks. I
Goya
mean,
can.
close enough.
Ivanka had a Goya can. There it is.
There
There
you
it
go. Yeah,
is.
there it is. No bricks.
No bricks, right?
Everybody knows bricks are
You,
hard.
you remember the president posing in the Oval Office with an array of Goya products in front of him
Ah,
on the on
yes.
the
Yes.
on the president's desk? Come
You
on.
know,
Stuff of
as
the press.
presidents do. You know, I remember
Right,
when
right,
Reagan. No, oh wait,
right,
he never did.
right.
You
And
remember
by
when
the way,
there was a
as if
controversy
Donald
that he
Trump
liked a
has
certain
ever eaten, I say, as if Donald Trump
right,
has ever eaten a Goya product.
right. He is a guy who eats well done steaks with ketchup and French fries.
Oh.
End of discussion. The horror. So let's see. What else do we have in the stack here on the campaign robbery? We have Steve Bannon. We have that still, guys.
Oh, build that wall.
I love that one. That will never get old. And folks, as you may be able to see, I have my Steve Bannon painting up above my
Nice.
rig here.
Awesome.
Is Steve Bannon out on parole, or is he still in jail? Where is he?
He's out on
He's
out
on
on
bail.
bail. He's out on
They're
bail.
He's
all
out
on
on
bail.
bail. That's
Yeah.
what I meant, not parole, bail. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
right.
is
All
out on bail.
and then
Huh.
and I guess Colfage,
Out
Brian
on
Colfage, the
that
Air
boat.
Force veteran. Yeah, well,
Right.
he's been getting in trouble because he won't stop tweeting and Facebooking about what a crime, how it's all just an evil scam. He's still trying to raise money off it. That's the occasion. They're keeping the grift going. That group. They're now raising money off the fact they're
Yeah.
arrested. It's impressive. I mean,
It really
you gotta
is.
give them
It
credit
really is impressive.
for,
I mean, those
keeping
guys
the
have
grift
like
going. I mean, it's impressive.
they got some scam hustle going on there. It really is. So, folks, the other big
Better.
story that was
Yeah.
absolutely blowing up Washington this week, or today rather, was Bob Woodward. Now, as a very, very young staffer at the Pentagon in the first Gulf War, Bob Woodward came to interview Mike Dugan, the Air Force Chief of Staff. And Mike Dugan proceeded to step on his dick in an epic way. I loved Mike Dugan to death. Was a great, great guy, a great leader. And yet he completely screwed the pooch with Woodward by talking to Woodward basically on the record. And Dick Cheney, as you might imagine, was not amenable to that at all. And I was trying to scuttle around like a young junior guy and not get crushed in the fallout. But I watched how Bob Woodward worked. It taught me very early in my career that this is a guy who knows how to get in there and talk to people and get them to go on the record and get them to let him do interviews at great length and specificity. He does this to every administration,
Right.
left and right, Republican and Democrat.
Yep.
And then Donald Trump came along. And Donald Trump was so mad he didn't interview him for the first book that Woodward wrote about the Trump administration. He overrode the rest of the
Right.
staff and said, I'll give Woodward 18 interviews.
Remember I said about rakes? Okay. Remember what I said about
Donald
rakes?
Trump
It's
is Donald Trump is convinced that he is smarter than every human being
That's
on
right,
earth.
Jennifer.
And every
Yep.
time he tries to prove it, to Fred's point, it's another rake in the face.
It's a rake in the
Amazing.
face. So we were all shocked by this today because look, it's he admitted to Bob Woodward
Right.
he lied about COVID from the very beginning. He admitted to Bob Woodward he minimized it. He knew about it. He knew the dangers of it. He knew the risk factors it posed to people. He knew that it posed a danger to young and old alike. He knew that it was much more infectious than the flu. He knew it all. And now he has said it on tape. Now the 200,000 Americans who are dead, their families have now the understanding that this president admitted on tape what he did. He told the truth to Bob Woodward behind closed doors, thinking it was going to be a one and done. And yet here it is now, probably one of the most consequential breaking news stories. It's rare that a campaign launches an October surprise that fucks itself, but here we are. So let's go ahead and play the LP ad that we did today on this very quickly. The guys turned this in like a hot minute, but you'll see a lot more of this coming forward.
This is more deadly. This is 5 per, this is 5% versus 1% and less than 1%, so this is deadly stuff.
We show cases, 99% of which are totally harmless.
Not just older
Exactly.
people, to plenty of young people.
Young people are almost immune to this disease.
It's also more deadly than your strenuous flus.
We lose thousands and thousands of people a year to the flu. We don't turn the country off.
I wanted to always play it down. I still like playing it down.
I mean, on the one hand, it's tempting to joke about which idiot in the White House was it, Jared? Was it McElhaney or McEnany, whatever her name is? Was it which one of them said, "Hey, this is a great idea"? We know it was Trump. We know his ego was so
Right.
big
Right,
he had to do that interview. And I mean,
right.
Jennifer, what does it tell us about his absolute mendacity and his absolute like untruthfulness that he's admitting this behind closed doors and doing it without a
Right.
blink? There's no, it's completely casual. These
Oh,
interviews were from very recently.
yeah.
This is not like something
Well,
he's been sitting
these
on for a year.
no, these interviews, were taking place. What it would be great, to show continue to show the side by sides of what he said to Woodward on March 6th and what he said to the American people on March 7th.
Yeah,
It's premeditated, is what this was. This is
Yep.
premeditated. It was. You said a second ago how shocking it is. The problem is, it's not shocking. It's it. Are you surprised to learn that Donald Trump
no,
not only knew that he was putting hundreds of thousands of American lives at risk, but that he had zero emotional connection to that? That he has zero care. The truth about Donald Trump is that he cares about one person only, and it's Donald Trump. And I think
yeah,
sometimes, we say, "Oh, you don't care about me." Like it's the enormity of having a president who does not care. Almost 200,000 lives lost. We did a great ad on this a month or two ago
yeah,
when it
hmm
hit 150 maybe. And
right,
we talk about lives lost, birthdays not celebrated, graduations missed, weddings that you will not attend, um, parents dying alone in a hospital, in an ICU ward, children who will not be raised by the parents who. I mean, you
right,
go through what the loss, the enormous, burdensome, heartbreaking loss of 192,000 lives. And Donald Trump does
and
not
and
care.
rising and rising.
And
You
rising
know,
and rising.
this is one of those fundamental abrogations of leadership. And Fred,
Yeah,
this is one of those things where it iterates across all the spectrum. He doesn't give a shit about the troops. He doesn't give a shit about the people who are
right.
dying. He doesn't care about
Nope.
anything, right? I mean, this is a guy without any sort of moral center, and a leader needs a moral center.
There's no human empathy. There's no soul. I mean, we talk about being a Christian, where's the soul that goes into accepting these deaths and believing that the most
Right.
important thing is your poll numbers? I've got such a personal connection to this one. I don't know if you guys know in my weird life, but I actually spent 6 weeks about as the administrative chief of staff of a COVID field hospital in New York, run by New York Presbyterian Hospital
Yeah.
called Ryan F. Larkin Field Hospital, named after an
hmm
amazing young man, a Navy SEAL who took his own life. And I know COVID, and I wasn't a healthcare worker. I was the guy who make sure everybody got paid and was on the schedule. But
Right.
I saw people arrive at our hospital who were my age and look like they're in their 70s. I saw people go home straight to a nursing home because they're never going to recover. This disease is deadly. This disease is permanently debilitating.
hmm
It's leaving people with enlarged hearts. We don't even know the damage this disease does.
Right.
And to see the mock, I remember being angry then. I mean, that was April. I came home right before Memorial Day, so April through end of May, and I remember Trumpist friends of mine, my God, about the lockdowns, right? Or wearing masks
Right.
and saying,
hmm
oh, it's those New York people's fault that we're like this. It's like Jesus, in the middle of you know what Saddam Hussein, everybody know about Saddam Hussein, right? Saddam
Sure.
ruled Iraq by ruling over the mess, just like Yugoslavia, right? He had the Shias fighting the Kurds fighting the
hmm
Sunnis, everybody fighting the Sunnis, everybody fighting the Kurds,
Sure.
and then he sat atop the ashes. That's Donald Trump in a nutshell. As long as we're fighting each other, as long as we're pissing at
Right.
each other, as long as the guy in South Carolina was complaining about the guy in New York is his fault, as long as the people wearing
Right.
masks, as the people refuse to wear a mask, Donald Trump can sit on the ashes all damn day. But now
Right.
there's
Right.
190,000 Americans dead. And one of them is my former wife. Her favorite aunt just died in Texas a week ago, and
hmm
and she was a lovely lady, vivacious. She came just in October, cooked made my entire family this wonderful Mexican meal. She lives in Texas, Hawaiian lady living in Texas. Just go figure. And that's Hawaiian life for you right there. And I tell you, to lose somebody close to you like that, and she was gone in a week, and for the president of the United States to not, again, like we said earlier, to not feel that loss, to not have the empathy that goes with the knowledge that Americans are suffering because of his lack of leadership. And then even more sickening, let's be honest, guys, when we're talking, we can't forget the color, to see Mitch McConnell, to see, congressmen, people like Dan
Right.
Crenshaw, who's a veteran SEAL, Tom Cotton, who's a veteran, lives and dies, and talk about how he's a freaking ranger like I am. To ignore that as Americans die.
Mm-hmm.
I never dreamed in my life I'd be in America where the people who run our country give a zero shits about almost 200,000 Americans lose their lives because they couldn't be bothered for stupid shit like wearing a mask
Right.
because it'll
Or
screw up his
staying
ortho
home a
makeup.
couple more, staying home a couple
We're
more
literally
weeks.
not wearing masks. Yeah, the mask is an issue because Orange Julius Caesar was afraid his freaking makeup would get smeared.
Correct.
But you know what surprised me? What did genuinely surprise me with all of this was when Herman Cain passed away. Herman Cain, who caught the coronavirus, and everybody wants to say, well, we can't say for sure where he got it. He was at the Tulsa
Oh, we
rally
can.
where a whole lot of
Yeah.
other people, right, where a whole lot of other people got sick. And Herman Cain, I knew him through, the primary process when he ran and came up here through New Hampshire. And he was a good guy. Herman Cain was a good guy. He has family that loves him, just like grandchildren, children. And what surprised me was the degree to which the president and his administration and the entire Republican Party just sort of brushed that off, that Herman Cain died.
Yeah.
He's,
They didn't blink
he
an eye.
died. He's gone. And nobody,
Look,
just like, oh,
they don't care about anything except him. It's a personality cult now, Jennifer, and we've all talked about this a million times because
Yeah.
and I knew Herman slightly. He was an affable guy, he's a friendly guy, fun guy to be
right.
around. I had a steak dinner with him one time. It was hilarious. 3 hours of like shooting the shit and drinking wine and eating steak dinner. Great, fun guy. But these people don't care about anything. They really don't. And it's a grim sort of place to be. But I will say this, folks. I know this, our first night back here on the breakdown has maybe been a little heavier than some of our convention coverage.
Yeah.
But we think it's important that we have this discussion. We think it's important we bring this forward and we keep talking about what the hell's really going on with Donald Trump, what the hell's really going on with this country. And I want to roll out of this interview tonight. I want to first thank Fred Wellman and Jennifer Horn for being on tonight with me. It has been a fantastic conversation, and I treasure you both as friends. And I am just delighted we could have this talk tonight, and look forward to having you guys back very soon. We're going to roll out tonight with somebody. Speaking of somebody who's been a disloyal person for a long time now, we ran an ad today. Starting in South Carolina, we ask our followers to put to give us $1 million. We would go into South Carolina. Well, we're spending a little bit more than $1 million. We raised it. We're putting it right into South Carolina. We're going to go a little over that number because we just don't like Lindsey that much because he's a very bad person. But I want to show you our latest ad. It is not safe for children. You should not. You should send the little ones out of the room because it is the first ad I've ever made that includes maggots. Yeah. I don't mean the MAGA maggots. I mean
this one,
like creatures.
This one.
So if we can roll the Lindsey Graham parasite ad,
Yikes.
we will.
Some animals can't survive unless they take. They don't establish natural equilibriums. Some animals are parasitic. They drink the lifeblood of their hosts, infect whatever they touch, and spread like a virus. They're often right under our noses, camouflaged, convincing their hosts they're not harmful at all.
And every time I turn around, I'm being asked about Donald Trump.
He's crazy. He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. He's unfit for office.
And when their host is taken from them, they seek a new one.
I am all in. Keep it up, Donald.
Everything he said was true.
Parasites don't care if they feed off a good host.
I love him to death.
Or an evil one. They only have one purpose: to feed. There's only one way to stop a parasite: deprive it of its host. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertisement.
Sleep tight, everybody. Hey, tomorrow night we will be back at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Jennifer's like, I'm out. We'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll have Mike Madrid and some other Lincoln Project superstars to join us. Once again, I want to thank Fred Wellman and Jennifer Horn for being with us tonight, and thank all of you for joining us on LPTV. Thanks, folks. Have a great night.
Bye.